Hello, John.
Yeah, wait now. God, it's a better. This thing is. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
Yes, so today we're going to talk about electric cars. There was an article that came out there recently. We'll put a description there in the video, a link for it. But what they're saying basically is that the electric cars are destroying the tarmac roads, and that in future, if we're going to accommodate electric cars, that we're going to have to change our roads to concrete.
That'd be a costly affair.
Well, it already costs 1 billion in Ireland to maintain the roads. So you can imagine if you if you had to change the
Well,
roads
you
to,
see, are the motorways in concrete?
well, no, the motorways
Yeah,
are tarmac, but probably what's under it is, of course, in parts of it anyway, would be concrete. But for a lot of
yeah.
it,
But
it
I
wouldn't
thought
be.
like they look like concrete on top. Excuse me. So, well, the fact is that they are apparently, according to the Leeds University, I think that they have undertaken a study, uh, an in-depth study of these electric vehicles, and there's different sizes, and they all have batteries, and the batteries are fairly heavy, and the bigger the car, the heavier the battery, and the more wear and tear on the road. So this is something that, fortunately, the Leeds University has undertaken an in-depth study of this business of electric cars because they're supposed to be the way forward according to these governments that are kind of clueless and in many ways are dependent on vested interest to tell them about this. But now this study indicates that they are the ordinary tarmac roads that are all over the country in some ways, that they are responsible for all the potholes. And the heavier they are, the worse they are. And one thing that this Green Party has inflicted on the city in Dublin and probably in other places is buses that's going to go electric now. So what kind of weight are those batteries in those buses going to be? What's the cost of hitting them out from what they were, diesel or whatever they were, mostly
Well,
diesel.
my main
So
concern with the buses, John, and we said it there in a video, is that when an
yeah,
electric battery explodes, it happens very quickly. Okay, and I've seen it on YouTube there, where electric batteries have exploded in buses, and if you quickly it's engulfed in flames, So I really think they need to rethink public transport for EV vehicles, making them electric. I don't think is a good idea. I don't think it's a safe idea.
it's fatal, and plus the cost of doing such a thing, it's probably astronomical. So this Green Party that we're saddled with in this country and probably in other countries, they have no clue about the implications of what they're proposing.
Hmm.
And I think you used a very good description of the average electric car, the weight of it. It's as heavy as a cow or a cattle, a grown cattle, and they're pretty heavy. And I think there's another item that you mentioned that they were as heavy as. What was it besides a cow that they were as
Okay, so
heavy as?
just to put it into context, okay, the weight of
Yeah,
a battery in an electric vehicle, okay,
like the
it can be
battery.
it can be the weight of a 2-year-old cow, okay, it can be the
Yeah,
weight of a grand piano, it can be the
yeah,
weight
grand piano. Yeah.
of a grizzly bear. So,
So,
so
so we can see that they're heavy. The batteries make them heavy, and some of them are silent. And one of the worst things about them, it doesn't matter what mileage they say. One thing I know about them, because unfortunately, my late wife, Lord have mercy, may she rest in peace and be happy in heaven. The fact of the matter is that I had one of them, and you had to charge them here, there, and yonder. But at the time I had them, there was no charge on these for it to be charged. Now there is a charge, but when my late wife went to her maker, I still had it, and I was going to Galway. Well, it took me 10 hours to go to Galway because the charges, some of them weren't working, and I thought they were working.
Hmm.
So they were disgrace. I got rid of a Charbush and got a car, and now I have a diesel car which can go nearly forever. I was down in I was down in Limerick. I was back. I was up in Dundalk. I was back, and I still had this. I still was fairly full in regard to what I had in the tank. So it goes. But the electric car, it doesn't matter what it costs or how much it's supposed to go. If you're going up a hill, it loses mileage. If you put on the heater in the winter, it loses mileage. So if it says it does 200 and odd kilometers, and you have to go at 50 on a flat road at 50, no more than 50 kilometers an hour or miles an hour. So, there's no use on motorways, and it's no use in going anywhere because you've got to make sure that you have these places that where you can charge it, and it was costing money. And if you do it on what they call a fast charger, it's affecting the battery life. So
It
there's a
is,
lot
you know,
of snags attached to it.
there is indeed. But go back to the weight of the cars. I
The
remember,
weight is a strong.
I remember I remember in County Kerry years ago, there was there was an article in the Kerryman newspaper, and I was talking about Kerry Co-op, the trucks. So Kerry Co-op,
Yes,
the trucks damaged the roads because they carry the milk. You see, they
yes,
carry tons and tons of milk. But anyway, they had to reduce the size of the trucks to the smaller version truck because the actual wheels were eating into the roads, especially at the bends. You know, and they were destroying
correct.
the roads. And so we have, I suppose, look what we have here with the electric cars is it's the volume of electric cars now that we have on the road. So before it wasn't really, this wasn't really noticeable. It didn't come to light because we only had a few electric cars on the roads, you know. But
That's right.
now we have
Yeah,
such a volume of electric cars that it's become more of an issue, you know. So
of
when
course it
when
has.
you add
Yeah.
up all the problems with electric cars, and then of course you have to recycle each car which has a 500 kg battery inside in it, right? That battery has
Yes,
to be recycled. So I don't see them as an environmental friendly alternative to anything.
I think you're quite correct, and there would be a disaster. How are you going to dispose of those batteries? What sort of sites? Because you can't, they don't degrade.
Hmm.
So it's a very short-sighted policy that governments and those ones um, wanting everybody to go electric and interfering with cars that don't damage the roads. There are presently the petrol cars and the diesel cars, and I think that they are clueless.
There.
And now that these studies have come out, I hope some of them have something between their up here that you can be aware of these studies and take account of the likely cost, not alone the difficulty with these electric cars and the harm they're causing, but the fact they might have to spend a fortune on roads to cater for them.
Absolutely.
So, I
But
mean,
there is,
what is wrong with
I have brought you a bit of good news, John Malone, on the Sunday. I would never, you know, I would never bring you bad news all the time, okay?
them?
So I
Right.
have saved the best until last. Okay. So there is a
Yes.
little bit of green light there that I could see, and that is that I remember I seen an article about 2 years ago, and they were talking about wireless charging. So you charge the car wirelessly from the road. So this might be an opportunity to rip up part of the road, okay? Say the M50, okay? So when you're driving on the M50, if it was a concrete road, if you were going to make changes, you could turn it into a wireless, completely wireless charging for the cars. That's one of the green shoots, but it's only a small one. And when you add everything up, electric cars, I'm afraid, will have to go.
I think so because it took a lot of ingenuity. Don't forget, people had horses to go about and traps and all the rest of it, and maybe a tilly lamp on the side if it was dark, so as they didn't wind up in the ditch. And that's what they went around in, and it was a very commodious way. Matter of fact, in The Quiet Man, there was Barry Fitzgerald had and the married couple, the couple that was engaged, was in this horse and trap.
Hmm.
So, like, it was a very civilized way of going about. And the horse, when it would pass whatever it passed, made good manure. So all these things were that's what we had. And then we had the trains, and then they did away with a lot of the trains that were servicing small towns and villages, which I don't think they should have ever done.
Yeah, and
And
the
they
good thing,
ripped up the tracks, and yeah, so built electric cars. I mean, there's the best way to travel is by train if you're going on a long journey, and you're able to go where you intend to go. That's a good way of traveling. And then your car, you have a bit of comfort in the car. If it's raining, you're not going to be drowned. You see where I'm coming from?
I see where you're
And
coming from,
don't.
John Malone, but I want to go back to the horses for a second, okay? Now the horses had a bit of comfort in the sense that if you remember, there was there was always so the back then on the days of the horses, you'd have grass in the middle of the road, and that would give them a bit of comfort for their feet.
That's right. And there's still grass in the middle of the road. That was normally known years ago when money was tight as the long acre. And horses are not horses, cows, and that sort of lads used to graze on that long acre because it was called a long acre.
I
Did you
never
know
that's
that?
that's where that phrase comes from.
Correct. It was on the side of the road. And I notice on the side of the roads here, and even where I live, there's enough grass there to feed a couple of cows or bullocks or whatever they are. But I mean, that now is not allowed. But it
Hmm.
was allowed years ago. And John Healy, that writer from Mayo, referred to that in some of his during his when he was writing. He often referred to the long acre in Mayo, especially, which was used, and I saw it in my time.
Hmm.
To be grazed on the side of the road on this grass.
And John
So at
Malone,
least that they kept it down. Now sometimes it's kind of gone high, and there are of course people to come along with whatever sort of machines to have to try and cut it. When I'm leaving my house here, there's grass as high as myself. I'm really giving you. Yeah.
that's a rather
So
that's a rather tall
it's a
meadow.
road. It's very, very tall, and there's often thorny bushes as well. So if you're walking, you wouldn't want to be sort of in the dark. You wouldn't know what you'd walk into
You'd
because
be
there's no
kind
lights.
you'd be kind of kept busy.
Well, you would have to try and be in the centre of the road. And then if a car come or something of that caliber, you'd have to step in, and you wouldn't know what you were stepping into.
Oh, holy Lord.
Right up in the ditch.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
these are the sort of little snags. But electric cars we're talking about, we digress. Suffice to say that these electric cars, they should be sent off in a slow boat to China and never come back because they're a dead loss.
Well, I can tell
Some
you,
people have them because they're economical and they don't cost as much as the other vehicles, but they cost a lot to buy, by the way.
they do. But the
Yes,
thing
so
about
it
it,
is.
and they're going up in price all the time. But the thing is, when I was a child, growing up in Dublin,
Yeah,
there was a cul-de-sac, and
yeah,
it was all concrete, right? So when you
yeah.
drive, there was no tarmac. But I do remember the noise. Concrete, like tarmac, it seems to have a nice cushioning effect when you're driving,
Right,
whereas
right. You're right there.
concrete can be a very abrupt kind of a surface to drive over, and I think it's very noisy or something.
Nice. Exactly. So there you are. There's another thing against these electric cars having to put concrete. And the next thing is because you'd want to have treble glazing to try and keep the noise out.
So John Malone,
You know what
look,
I'm
I'm
saying?
going to stick to diesel for another while, and sure we'll talk
Well, I'm
soon.
certainly going to stick to it. And the electric cars, I wouldn't take a president if I got them for nothing.
Now you're talking.
They're useless, and you can't go anywhere without having to sort of figure out where can you charge the miserable thing.
Or I should have said
And
there.
then you can't go anywhere. Put on a bit of heat in the winter. I remember my cousin has an electric car and he swears by it. Of course, the lights must be out. And anyways, he met us at the airport, and it was in April, and it was -2. We were frizz,
This is the
and
other thing.
he put on the
Yes,
heat. He put the heat on when we're only about 5 or 6 miles from the goddamn place where we're living. in Newcastle. And by the way, we couldn't get heat. We had to put on the heat and we had to leave it on all night. We were perished.
Yeah,
Imagine in April.
because a friend of
And
mine,
the electric car, no heat. If you put on heat, it won't. You have to get it charged. So we could have been hours coming because
but you
you'd
know
have to
what?
charge it somewhere.
It's the most dysfunctional mode of transport that has been invented. The electric car.
It's the worst.
It
I'd
really
say
is.
some fella was a kind of a bit of a lunatic that did that. He was maybe a professor, and he was. You ever see professors that gone kind of mad?
Uh-huh.
And this fella must have been suffering from some kind of anxiety neurosis to
Well,
invent a like that.
I think, John Malone, what that man needs, he needs the gift of a horse.
He does, and maybe a horse, if he was bending down, give him a good, you know, where horse instead of flying.
There you go.
We have no sympathy for these ones that has
We
inflicted such
don't.
a heap of rubbish on mankind. And now this government that we're saddled with, the Green Party, interfering with the agricultural end of it and affecting our exports.
No, you're talking.
So there's
Right.
another thing. So you have to watch them fellas like a hawk and not go along with whatever they suggest.
Exactly.
All they're doing is adding cost to the country. What is it going to cost for these buses to be electric?
Well,
Did
what's
you
it
ever hear
what's it
such
going to cost when
stupidity?
they go? What's it going to cost when they go wrong? You know,
What's it
they're
going to cost on the
dangerous.
surface?
Yes, yes,
There'll be
yes.
potholes everywhere.
There will indeed, sir.
Mm,
So look,
yeah,
I'll head away now because we've got a few more videos to do, and
correct and right. Yeah, we've overstepped the mark here with
we
this one.
have we have
Right,
to bring other matters to the attention of the public, and I'm sure the public are
right.
just
Yeah,
waiting for us
yeah.
to.
We have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
next video.
Cheery
Thank
boy.
you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye.